People keep asking what's the next book they need to read, and the answer is very simple. It's Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick.
In a world created for the descendants of gods, where the Fae are born to serve, a woman bound to the air of death fights fate and desire. Storm of Secrets and Sorrow is book 2 of the best-selling BookTok sensation, a contemporary dark romantasy legacy series for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Kaylee Smith, and Rebecca Yarros.
The second I knew that this book had me was when I realized it had gods, dragons, shifters, vampires, and witches. It has it all for you.
It even has my favorite tropes like morally gray characters, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her or him and die, one bed, one horse, he falls first, enemies with benefits, like you can't go wrong.
And everyone knows that it is fantastic because the first book was independently published back in 2023, and the series was a #1 Amazon bestseller with nearly 40,000 Goodread reviews and 16,000 Amazon reviews as of 2025. So you know it's grown even more.
And when it was published traditionally, it was an instant New York Times bestseller.
Make sure you get your copy today of Storms of Secrets and Sorrow. It has an incredible deluxe special edition with stenciled edges, a beautiful foil-stamped hardcover, exclusive design with illustrated end papers, and full-color character art.
You can find Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
I recently discovered 11 Reader because a fun fact about me that a lot of people don't know is that I have a reading disability. I have always struggled with reading and concentration, and when it comes to things like PDFs or things that I really need to focus on, 11 Reader has really come in handy.
The fact that I can upload my own content, I have so many business memos I have to read every day.
And then it reads it to you, and you get to choose the voice that reads it to you. You get to have a British accent reading those documents to you.
And I just retain so much more.
I really love the voices. Having a British accent whisper sweet nothings about legal documents to me keeps me going.
Start free with 10 hours of your own content per month. And that's essentially a 400-page book turned into audio for free.
Upgrade to Ultra for $11 a month and unlock unlimited uploads plus 20 hours of premium audiobooks every month. No credits, no commitments. It's really the ultimate listening app when you can't get enough. Being able to retain information is really hard for me when I'm reading certain difficult documents. And I really can't emphasize enough to you guys how much 11 Reader has helped me review so many things for the podcast.
Whether you're writing your own book, you have a lot of documents to go through, or you want to listen to audiobooks, choose 11 Reader and use promo code PODCAST to get your first 2 months for only $1.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at Accenture.com/Spotify.
Welcome to Academia Unlocked, a special series from BookTok for BookTok, where we take one classic work and explore it through 3, or in this case 2, episodes, moving from understanding the text to deep analysis and finally to cultural interpretation.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
Between us, we have over 13 years of academic literary training, bachelor's degrees in creative writing, and master's degrees. We built this series to bring the depth we learned in our training into a space that feels like a conversation anyone can participate in.
Each book gets 3, again, in this case 2, episodes, and they build on top of each other. We started last week with literary literacy, reading the work the way you would in a high school AP English class, close and careful. Episode 2 is our advanced analysis, where we shift into a college-level seminar lens. And usually, in most other cases, we would have a third episode where we look at the book in media and talk about adaptations, cultural legacy, and how it translates beyond the page. Unfortunately for us, House on Mango Street has been adapted into an opera, and we can't see it.
No. This would be a good TV show, special series.
Like a miniseries?
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be really sad.
Yeah. Didn't say we'd have a good time with it. I'm just saying it would be a great one.
Yeah.
Why would a serious literary writer choose to tell a coming-of-age story in pieces that are sometimes only a paragraph long, instead of a traditional novel with chapters with a plot arc?
Because in the case of House on Mango Street, fragmentation is not a limitation. It is argument.
Last episode, we talked about the house on Mango Street as a mosaic, individual tiles that build a picture. Today, we're going to take that idea seriously as literary theory, not just a description.
In this case, we're talking about form as meaning. We're talking about the genre Cisneros is actually working in, which sits somewhere between the novel, the prose poem, and oral storytelling. We're also talking about the specific feminist tradition that this book is in conversation with. And we go into why a small book is doing some of the most sophisticated narrative work in 20th century American fiction.
Let's start with the formal question, because everything else in this episode is going to build on it. The House on Mango Street is composed of 44 vignettes, short, self-contained pieces, most between 1 to 4 pages. None of them structure like traditional chapters with rising action and resolution.
Critics have argued about what to call this book. Is it a novel? Is it a short story? Is it a collection of short stories? Is it a prose poem sequence? Sandra, the author herself, has resisted clean categorization. She described wanting to write something that worked on multiple levels at once. You can read a vignette in isolation, the way you can read a poem, but you can also read it as part of a larger continuous narrative.
That hybridity is the point. The vignette form mimics the way memory actually works, not as a continuous chronological line, but as a series of charged freestanding moments. Esperanza isn't narrating a plot, she's narrating a consciousness, and for me, it almost kind of reads like her talking in therapy.
One might say that there's a feminist argument embedded in that choice, which scholars have written about extensively. The traditional novel, the Bildungsroman, which is the coming-of-age story or structure, it inherited this structure largely from a male literary tradition. It's linear, goal-oriented, building toward a single climactic transformation. Sandra is writing a girl's coming of age, and she chooses a structure that is circular, recursive, and built from accumulation rather than a single turning point, which honestly just makes me feel even better about Sarah J. Maas wanting to change our understanding of the novel.
Yeah, if there's anything that I have learned from this series that we've done is that literature is when you don't write chapters.
Yeah. Literature is when you don't follow the rules.
Genuinely, it's like, oh, you want to do letters? You want it to be not even in the action in the moment of anything? I mean, a lot of these are not even in the moment. They're like recapping conversations. Like between this, The Color Purple, even Interview with the Vampire, and then we're going to be doing the Joy Luck Club. Nothing. Chapters are gone. And even when we look at the book itself, now Amy and I listened to the audiobook, but we have to do research. Even from what we've seen online is that the white space on the pages matter. There are gaps between vignettes and they are not empty. They're doing work. They ask the reader to sit in what isn't said, to feel the elision the way Esperanza feels the elision in her own life. Things adults don't explain to her. Violences that happen just off the page. Time that passes without being narrated. All of these are happening off the page, off screen, and yet it's guiding the story along.
What is fantastic about the structure of this book as well is the fact that the vignette as a form has roots in both Latin American literary tradition and modernist prose poetry. And that is something that speaks to Sandra's background as a Mexican American. And quite frankly, prose poetry is so anti-establishment in so many ways. And that's what I feel like her writing is trying to achieve as well. She also has cited other authors that have written vignette-driven novels. For example, Jorge Luis Borges and Jean Toomer's Cane, which is about Black American life in the South. And that, Sandra has said, was served as a formal influence.
Now, these vignettes can largely stand on their own. Several have been included in anthologies as short stories and other books and taught individually, but read in a sequence, they accumulate into something closer to a portrait than a plot.
The brevity or briefness of these vignettes also mirrors kind of an oral tradition, the way that stories get told aloud in fragments, often interrupted and then returned to. And that form itself connects to a longer tradition of Latina and Chicana storytelling passed through generations of women.
Structurally, the novel refuses closure in the conversational sense. There's no single climax, which forces the reader to locate meaning in pattern and repetition rather than in plot resolution.
This formal looseness is deceptive. Critics note that the vignettes are tightly cross-referenced between the use of recurring objects, phrases, and images, which again, as Jack mentioned earlier, accumulate meaning across the book. Some examples include windows as an object, feet and hips as a focal point of the female body, and that accumulation of meaning around those things is almost poetic rather than it is novelistic.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really great examples, especially in the hair chapter vignette. I'm like, it's not a chapter, but Esperanza says, quote, "Everybody in our family has different hair. My papa's hair is like a broom, all up in the air. And me, my hair is lazy. It never obeyed barrettes or bands." I love the description. Sandra's descriptions in this book are incredible. And it's an example of how a single sensory image becomes a vehicle for an entire emotional register, right? Hair is more than hair. It shows identity. It shows belonging or not belonging.
Which is so reflective of even today.
Yeah.
Hair says a lot about a person's standing in society, in their community, and the assumptions people make about you. So as we move into our next segment, I want to talk about Virginia Woolf, who is another female author, known more commonly in the traditional literary sense, quite frankly, because she's white. I never really liked her, if you can't tell. So, sorry, no offense to those who do like Virginia Woolf. However, I bring her up because this book, House on Mango Street, is in direct conversation with Virginia's work, whether or not you actually are able to identify that.
I was cool with Virginia Woolf. Always chill with her. Not one way or the other, but in 1929, Woolf published A Room of One's Own, a long essay arguing that a woman needs money and a room of her own if she's going to write fiction. I do remember reading that in college, and it was like, again, foundational to early baby feminist Jack. The room is both literal, physical space, privacy, and the ability to close the door, but it's also symbolic. It's autonomy, the right to interior life, the conditions under which a self can develop independent of being constantly observed, managed, or claimed by others.
I'm realizing maybe I just didn't like the way that instructors taught Virginia Woolf as I was growing up.
I bet, were they men?
I think some were, yeah. I probably should go back and give her a chance. I just think of Nicole Kidman with a bad prosthetic nose. They did a biopic decades ago of Virginia Woolf, and Nicole Kidman played Virginia Woolf. And her prosthetic nose was like so talked about because, she's changing her look to get into character.
What a hero. Nicole Kidman was willing to put on a nose that wasn't her perfect nose.
Grab a snack, stretch your legs, and we'll be right back.
It has now reached a point that if I don't have my Vionics with me, any of my Vionics with me on a trip, I know that trip is ruined.
My Vionics shoes are my go-to no matter what I'm doing. I just got this City Walk sneaker in black leather and suede, and I cannot tell you how many compliments I've gotten. They are so cute and so comfortable.
So cute. We wore them to a market and you were so mad that it got dusty and dirty and you went home and took care of them. That's how much you love your Vionics.
I've done that to all 3 pairs of my Vionics. As soon as there's a little mark on them, I go home, I wash them because they are perfect.
To add to my Vionic collection, I have the Larissa flats. And unlike the flats that we grew up with that absolutely destroyed my feet, Vionic shoes are powered by VioMotion technology to balance the whole you. Larissa is a contemporary wedged flat that blends modern style with effortless comfort. I tell ya, and my feet are able to withstand walking in them.
And I love the little square toe that they have. I'm a big fan of square toes. What's great about the City Walk sneaker and the Larissa flat, they're great for summer, they're great for fall. Honestly, you can get away with them all year round. Even better, Vionic Shoes offers a 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return them. Why would you? But you get a full refund within 30 days if you do.
Use code BookTok at checkout for 15% off your entire order at vionicshoes.com when you log into your account. It's a one-time use only.
Vionic Shoes, wearable well-being for your feet.
Yeah, a room of one's own definitely changed a lot for me now that I'm thinking about it. And I would definitely like to go back and read it again, I think, as an adult woman. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
I was going to say, we should do that for an episode.
Yeah, because there's something about a room of one's own and what it goes into and how I think some of it can change in today's modern social media. Damn it, I just gave myself homework. I think that might be my...
Read it too.
Yeah.
Sandra has talked about Woolf's essay or Virginia's essay directly as an influence on her. And when you reread Mango Street with Virginia Woolf and her essay in mind, the house Esperanza wants stops just being a house. It's Woolf's room, translated into a working-class Chicago neighborhood for a girl for whom Woolf's original audience, educated, often wealthy, often white English women, would never have been speaking.
That's the move that Sandra makes, and it's a sharp one. She takes a foundational feminist text and asks, why does a room of one's own mean if you're poor? If you're a kid, if you're Mexican American in a neighborhood that the rest of the city has already decided is a problem to be solved rather than a home to be respected.
The house Esperanza describes at the end of House on Mango Street, white with stairs, a basement, a porch, isn't really about architecture. It's about the right to interiority, the right for your body, your time, and your space to be yours instead of constantly available to other people who feel entitled to it.
And really, that is where this book becomes explicitly feminist in its critique, not just implied. Look at every woman we covered last episode. Rafaela, locked in her apartment. Sally, married off as a child, really. Esperanza's own mother, who's brilliant and confined. None of them have a room of their own. Their bodies and their space belong to their husbands, fathers, and the demands of the neighbor's gaze.
Esperanza's ambition for a house, then, is not about being materialistic or about status. It's the most radical thing a girl in her position could actually want. It's about wanting a self who is not owned by anybody else.
As we talked a little bit last week, we know that Sandra wrote most of the novel while reading Woolf in her Iowa MFA program, which Amy was telling us is notorious for being one of the most difficult programs back in the day and in today.
Mango Street can be read as a working-class Chicana revision of A Room of One's Own, taking Woolf's argument about gender and creative autonomy and regrounding it in race and class, which honestly adds a whole new layer.
The recurring motif of windows throughout the novel, Esperanza's great-grandmother looking out at one, Rafaela looking down from one, Esperanza herself observing the street from one, inverts the, quote, room image. A window is a room that you can see out of but can't leave through. It's confining. It's so messed up where it's like, a window is like, you should be free, right? Like you should be able to look out and see the freedom of the world and, it's a fire escape or something. And instead, it's making your prison have a view.
Mm-hmm. Scholars who write about Mango Street place it within a broader tradition of Chicana feminist literature alongside writers like Gloria Anzaldúa, whose concept of the quote unquote borderlands, which is living between cultures, languages, and identities, really conceptually maps very closely to Esperanza's experience of being caught between worlds.
The ending insists that Esperanza will leave and come back, completes a purely individualist reading of A Room of One's Own. Sandra's version of autonomy is relational, not isolated. Freedom is something you carry back to a community, not just something you claim for yourself, which I think is very powerful. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Woolf's A Room of One's Own, especially when you think about the time that it was written in 1929, right? And I understand why there had to be a very focus on the individual for women. They only focused on white women, which is a problem. But I like that Sandra took it into not just the individual, but to the women of the community.
Yeah. And quite frankly, it makes sense that it would come from a woman whose culture is focused on community, right? On family, on the unit and the whole, rather than, let's be honest, most white society cultures, regardless of where you are, but especially in America, focuses on the individual.
Yeah. But even with all of that, yes, Esperanza comes back. Yes, Esperanza represents, community. And whether the fact that she can't leave the community, whether she wants to or not, that's kind of debatable if that's a good thing or not. But
right.
I mean, you have that one vignette, A House of My Own, which when you think about the comparison of A Rooms of One Own, you're like, oh, inspiration here. And one of the quotes there is, quote, "A house of my own with my porch and my pillows, my pretty purple petunias, my books and my stories, my 2 shoes waiting beside the bed, nobody to shake a stick at, nobody's garbage to pick up after." This is all, very much what Virginia's saying in her own essay, right? So you can see the comparisons, and I think that Sandra does a great job expanding it, not just beyond an individual, but also as a Mexican-American woman and as someone who's part of a larger community. Now let's talk a little bit more about borderlands, bilingualism, and some Chicana identity. But I want to talk about identity at a structural level, not just what Esperanza is, but how the text itself enacts being caught between cultures.
So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, another Chicana feminist writer, Gloria Anzaldúa, her work is a really good critical lens for us to use when we examine House on Mango Street. This idea of borderlands. It's not about literal borders, for example, the US and Mexico border, but it's about the psychological and cultural space of living between 2 languages, 2 value systems, 2 versions of womanhood without really fully belonging to either. And, neither Jack nor I are Mexican American, but we have in our own cultures experienced and lived this borderlands concept.
The amount of times my mom growing up, and I'm Chilean American, but my mom would, it just doesn't roll off the tongue the way that Mexican American does. But the amount of times my mom would be like, okay, now you can't tell other people that we're doing this. You don't tell anyone at school that I'm giving you some wine at 9 years old. There's just certain things that you're like, you just don't share that. You keep that over here. Now, Esperanza is constantly translating, not always linguistically, though there's some of that happening, but also culturally. She's explaining Mexican naming traditions to an English-speaking reader. She's narrating Catholic ritual and folk superstition side by side with American pop culture. She exists in a kind of double consciousness, aware of how her world looks from the outside while still living fully inside it.
And the prose style she uses in this book reflects that. Sandra writes in English, but the syntax, the rhythm, the imagery, they feel reflective of Spanish. Critics call this concept code switching, and I'm using air quotes, code switching, at the level of sentence structure, even when she's not using literal Spanish words. The sentences build with the rhythm of oral storytelling and folk speech rather than standard academic English prose.
A lot of people out there know code switching. A lot of my Black friends, actually, let me take it back. Every single one of my Black friends has talked about having to code switch and needing to adapt to a white community and a white audience. And I think that if it's something that you yourself are not familiar with, talk to someone. Talk to anyone who is not white. I think that's the easiest thing to do. Be like, do you code switch? And then be amazed. There's also a really important conversation here about the audience. Who is this book for? Sandra has said she wrote partly for the people in her own community who don't usually see themselves centered in literary fiction, and partly knowing a wider, often white academic audience would also be reading. That double awareness shapes a lot of choices in this book. What gets explained, what's left for an insider to simply recognize. I mean, it is done very, very well. The fact that she wants to honor her community, but also knowing that realistically she wrote this in college, right? So I promise you her professors were white. A lot of her peers were probably white there too.
Especially in Iowa.
We promise this is important. Capitalism, but make it brief.
I always forget how long summer is in California, and all of my work clothes are geared towards fall, winter. I need more summer appropriate staples.
I'm going to be going to Portugal at the end of the summer, and I need Quince to help me with summer vacation clothes because they have literally everything.
They make elevated essentials using premium materials like European linen, organic cotton, and washable silk, which is my personal favorite, without the traditional retail markup.
They also have amazing shoes. I got their ballerina Mary Jane flats in brown, and I will be walking Portugal in that the entire time. They are so comfortable.
I also recently discovered that they have really fabulous 14 karat gold jewelry. Everything is subtle, delicate, and just classy. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they work with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen. So you're paying for exceptional quality, not brand markup.
Quince has everything you need, from apparel to home to bedding to bath and all of the kitchen essentials and furniture. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier.
Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/booktalk.
This summer, soccer is here, and so are the watch parties. And Uber Eats has your game day essentials covered. Everything you need to keep your crowd happy, delivered straight to your door. Get wings, pizza, chips, dips, fresh ingredients, and more. Keep the soccer going and all your game day essentials flowing. Order in so you can lock in for the games. Only on Uber Eats for a limited time.
So another concept from Gloria and Zeldua's writing is this idea of mestiza consciousness. And that's defined as a way of being that holds contradictory cultural identities without resolving them to make them one. This is frequently used by scholars to read Esperanza's psychological position. And quite frankly, I would argue is how my brain works for many things.
Go on.
I mean, I see it in so many different aspects of my life, not just the cultural Chinese versus American. And there are concepts in Chinese that the English concepts, like one Chinese concept encapsulates 5 English concepts and does such a better job of like capturing what the meaning is.
Yeah.
I deal with that often because I always want to say the Chinese concept. I'm like, nobody will understand. But the English is so limited in what it captures. But then there's also like my queerness and my religious background, right? But even within my religious background, Mormon versus everybody else's version of Christianity, because Mormons have such different...
It's a special brand.
It's a very special brand of Christianity. So much so that the White House didn't label Mormons as Christian earlier this month. Anyway, like there's just so much that is, it's like oil and water. You just can't force it together. It exists separately, and no matter what you do, it won't be one.
I think so many people struggle with trying to mix it. And when in actuality, we're like, no, oil and vinegar can both be separate and they're just delicious in one bread, you know?
I love that I said oil and water and you're like, oil and vinegar. I'm like, yeah, that does sound better.
It does. Because like, at least like I want my oil and vinegar together. They separate. You put them together and it creates a beautiful person and snack.
But they're not mixing. They're layering.
Exactly. And you guys layer too. The novel rarely uses italics or heavily marked Spanish. Unlike some bilingual fiction, Sandra largely lets Spanish-inflected rhythm and vocabulary sit naturally inside English sentences, refusing to treat it as foreign or in need of translation. So it's kind of like making you understand Spanish without understanding Spanish.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it because I would argue the lack of Spanish is some level of forced conformity. Like some conformity you can't escape.
Yeah.
Because she's around people who wouldn't understand otherwise.
I would also like to potentially, but even though this wasn't like part of the story, but maybe it was, there is a whole thing about Latin American kids whose parents didn't teach them Spanish. And that a lot of Spanish speaking kid who, you know, their parents did teach them have the most fucking intense superiority complex of being real. Like sometimes they're real Mexicans or they're real Latin Americans or something like that. And it's like, but because you don't speak Spanish, then they deem you as not being Latin enough. So I kind of almost took it as like your parents aren't teaching you Spanish type of a...
I could see that too.
Yeah.
I could see that too. Or it could also be, it's either your parents are teaching you or like me, I refuse to speak to my father or my grandfather in Chinese.
Yeah.
Even if they spoke to me in Chinese first.
Yeah.
Because it was too fucking hard for me and too shameful to try.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, nope, I want nothing to do with it.
Fair.
Moving on. Esperanza's repeated meditation on her own name, hope in Spanish, sadness in English, is itself a Borderlands moment. She has one identity, but two completely different meanings, depending on which linguistic world is doing the reading. And even the text hyperfocuses on her name. Like there is so much focus on her name throughout each vignette that you can tell she has a hyperfixation.
Yeah.
Even though she doesn't like it.
Yeah. I've never really identified with my name. It's part of the reason why I go by Jack. But also, my name means supplanter.
What does that mean?
When you look it up, it means one who supplants.
But what is to supplant?
To take over. And
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'd agree. I just have nothing to take over. To take over something. But yeah.
My life.
Yeah, that's true. I'll supplant your life. Yeah. For such a pretty name, for it to have zero interesting meaning, it's kind of upsetting.
I take that to mean a conqueror.
I want to know just in case it's... Nope, supplanter. One who supplants. The first time I read that, I was so mad. I was like, that's not a fucking definition. That's not how definitions work. Anyway, back to us and analyzing this. Now, the history of how the house on Mango Street has been received reflects this double address. It was first embraced within the Chicana literary and academic circles before becoming more widely adopted in mainstream American curricula, a trajectory that mirrors its own theme of being seen first by your own community and then by the larger world. You have to prove it 2 times over.
Yeah, so true. Critics have also noted that Sandra resists making the character Esperanza a simple spokesperson for Chicana experience. She's very specific, she's contradictory, and sometimes unlikable in her judgments of other women, which itself is a feminist move because she is, in her own way, refusing the burden of being a representative rather than being her own individual person.
I think we've gone too far potentially on trying to be girls and not showing women being pit against each other. If this is your first time listening, we talk about romantasy on the other half of the podcast. And whenever we mention like 2 female characters, people immediately be like, oh, we need to stop pitting women against each other. And we're like, we're literally not. I think there needs to be books where we do pit women against each other because there are some women who are just bitches. And I just think that we are kind of gliding too far away from this, like, we can't be critical of women, which is why in my own book, one of my antagonists is a woman, mainly because it's like, actually, women are complex and sometimes they really suck. And I think sometimes our biggest attackers and antagonists in our own life are women. I know the most messy people in my life have been women. And I like that what Sandra does, and to kind of bring it back to this, is that I feel like in House of Mango Street, she doesn't excuse the women. And I think about, like, it was so hard. It's like, they're girls too, right? They're 12 years old.
They're
like
children.
They're children. But it just kind of sets the stage of this is the world. And these are just some of the women in the world. And this is why they act the way they act, because this is what they've been given. And it's the same way with like the bitches that I've known have been like, I can understand why you are such a bitch. However, that doesn't justify it.
Right. I understand you come from trauma. You have lots of trauma. You're acting on that trauma. Doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean I like you. No, I completely hear what you're saying. I think that we've lost the plot on stories having something to say and teaching us something. And if a woman is not a girl's girl, maybe there's a point to be made, like about who it reflects in our society, especially if that woman undergoes change or suffers consequences. Like, it's not about forcing women to suffer. Maybe it's saying, look how not overcoming your internalized misogyny plays out. Like, maybe you're the problem.
And what hurts more? For me, I'm thinking about my own life and just in books and like as a woman, what is more painful for me? Another woman who in theory we should understand and have some solidarity and understands what I'm going through, and yet acts in a way of pure selfishness and isn't willing to like look on beyond herself, or a man who I already hate. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, you want to give me a villain? You want to give me the King of Hybern? Fine, whatever. He's a dick. I don't like him anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's why something like, I mean, we're bringing in fantasy into this, but like I'm citing ACOTAR now. But I think that's why Amarantha was such a great villain, because she was interested in the man. She was interested. And I think that it was like, you know, I don't want to sit here and be like, we're pitting two women against each other. It's like, women can be shitty.
Yeah.
Again, why did Amarantha do it? Because of the King of Hybern, blah, 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 history. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm saying blah, 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 because like, this is not the podcast for that.
Right.
That's our other series. Please come back and listen to our other stuff. But yeah, I just think that Sandra and how she handled it was really, really well done.
I think so too. Now let's go deeper into something we touched on in last week's episode, but didn't kind of fully get into. And that's this idea of looking. Who looks at whom in this book, and what is the cost or the consequence of that looking?
This is where the feminist literary lens, the male gaze, or the concept of the male gaze, actually translates really well into this moment, because the male gaze is kind of like, it started in film, really. That's where it was originally coined, and it described how cameras frame women as objects of male visual pleasure rather than as subjects with interior lives. You can see traces of the same dynamic through Mango Street's prose. We talk a lot about the male gaze in our I was about to say our other podcast. It's still our podcast, but in our other stuff.
Content.
Yes. And, you know, once you see the male gaze and the degrees of it, you'll never not see it.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial break, but make it literary.
And we're live on match day as Doug reaches for a buffalo wing. He's got it! Oh, and he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! What a finish! There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Unlock over $4,000 in business and travel value annually with statement credits on select purchases from brands like Dell, ChatGPT Business, Hilton, and Adobe, and other benefits. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Based on total potential value of statement credits on select purchases and other benefits, enrollments required, monthly and other limits and terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Now, Esperanza, as a character, is constantly aware of being looked at before she's ready for it. She is a child, and so she often experiences it before she even wants it. For example, when she and her friends wear the high heels in the vignette titled The Family of Little Feet, or the men who whistle at her in the vignette titled Hips, her sexual assault in Red Clowns, Sally being looked at by her father with a controlling, possessive intensity. Blech. The book tracks vignette by vignette how girls, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds' bodies become public property the moment that they are perceived as a woman's body.
I mean, and that's just one level of perception, because there are horrible perverts out there who start to perceive it before they go into quote unquote womanhood.
Yeah.
But here's the sophisticated move. Sandra doesn't just depict the gaze. She gives Esperanza the narrating voice, which means Esperanza, even while being looked at, is simultaneously the one doing the looking, the one in control of how the scene gets told. The girl who is objectified in the world of the story becomes the author of the story itself. Again, that's why for me, it kind of reads like therapy sessions. Like, this is her talking to her therapist type of a thing.
Because that's not like structurally a common thing, right? In a way, this act of being retold through Esperanza's eyes and her experience means that the narrative is kind of doing this reclamation. Yes, Esperanza can't control the men who look at her, but she can control the narrative frame that the reader receives and, quite frankly, successfully makes us despise these men.
And this connects back to the writing as freedom theme that we talked about last time, but at a higher resolution. Writing isn't just thematically about freedom in this book. The narrative structure itself enacts that freedom. The form itself is the argument.
Let's go back to this idea of recurring imagery or motifs, two being feet and shoes. They show up in different ways throughout the book, from the family of little feet to Sally's eventual marriage. The use of feet and shoes as a motif, you could say, tracks literal and symbolic steps towards, in Esperanza's case, a sexualized adulthood. And for girls in general, that sexualized adulthood that is imposed upon them before they're even done going through puberty.
It's so bad and so relatable. Even the narrative style, where Esperanza is frequently shifting the narrative style of immediate first person to a more removed first person. And that removed first person starts to almost look like a documentary, anthropological narration. It's an observing tone. And it's letting her be inside her own girlhood and analyzing it all at once. Again, it's giving therapy to me.
Yeah, therapy, a little bit of meta in terms of like her awareness.
Yeah. The one that does it the most for me is Red Clowns.
Yeah.
Where she's assaulted. That's the most, like, she doesn't even talk about the instance.
Yeah, of what's happening to her physically.
She just goes into it, but you have more to say on Red Clowns.
So Red Clowns is widely read by scholars as the formal, for lack of a better word, climax. It's that emotional point of rupture. The prose breaks down in terms of syntax. It repeats itself. It fragments. And that's the beauty of what she's achieving, is this idea of form, the actual writing itself, mirroring the trauma rather than describing it from a safe narrative distance. We are in the moment with her because we are hearing and reading her trauma rather than observing the trauma from further back.
So therefore, we are processing her trauma the way that she is processing that trauma, which is removing herself.
Yep. Ugh. It gives me shivers every time I think about it.
Then you have the concept of the body, and the fact that the body is not simply private. It's a site where poverty, gender, and ethnicity are all read simultaneously by an outside world, which is part of why Esperanza's desire for a house of her own is inseparable from her desire for bodily autonomy.
Naming, so the use of name or being given a name, becomes relevant once again in this situation. Esperanza fantasizes about what her name might be if she got the chance to rename herself, whether that would be to be called ZZ the X, which is a moment scholars interpret as a desire to escape not just her actual name's meaning, but her entire inherited identity that is attached to being looked at and known by others. I'm sure also her culture and how that makes her other.
I don't have a cool way to bring in this quote, but I just love quotes from this book so much. This is from Three Sisters. Quote, "I want to be like the waves on the sea, like the clouds in the wind, but I'm me. One day I'll jump out of my skin. I'll shake the sky like 100 violins." Poetic.
So poetic.
Poetic. Oh my God. It's just so good. And then at the end of the day, even in this cry and need to be free, she still wants to be her own self. So here's where I want to land this episode. Last time we said The House on Mango Street is a coming of age story. Honestly, that's kind of what the internet and society has said. I mean, I feel like this is a every age story. I don't know how I would have felt reading this at 12 versus reading it as an adult, because I only ever read it as an adult.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a coming of age story. I would call it a forced to grow up too soon story.
Yeah, that's about right. I think that's a great way. I mean, and while all that is true, there's more to it. At a seminar level, what we're actually looking at is a book that uses its form, fragmented, circular, hybrid, bilingual in its bones. All of that enacts the very freedom its content is fighting for.
Sandra didn't just write about a girl who wants a room of her own. She built a narrative structure that refuses to be contained by conventional storytelling, by the genre that she inherited. It's the same way that her character, Esperanza, refuses to be contained by the future everyone around her in her neighborhood has already decided for her.
That's the thing about studying form. It's not decoration. I mean, like, there's so much to literature that is beyond just the words itself. It's how the shape of the words make the story, right? And by doing that, it then becomes an argument about what kind of life and what kind of consciousness the story believes is possible.
And Sandra believed something was possible that hadn't really been put on the page before. It was a Chicana girl's interior life. And it wasn't for comedic relief for anybody. It was totally a seriousness, a form invented specifically because there was no existing form that would have done her experience justice.
Now, I really wish we had more to go into. I wish there was a third episode where we talked about this book in media. And if there's a link that we did not find to, I don't know, I've seen clips of online plays, but like I hadn't found anything that's the whole thing through. Feel free to send it our way. Maybe the story hasn't been picked up to become a movie or a show is because I think for a couple of different reasons. I think people are afraid to depict not just young women's, again, not coming of age, but forced to grow up too soon. And they're afraid to depict Mexican American culture. And I think the difficulty is like both the beauty and the pain of that culture, right? Like, I know you and I have a lot of pride in our culture. I'm very proud of being Chilean. I celebrate Chilean Independence Day every year. I am out here fighting the Argentinians like I was born in Chile and into the war or something, right? There's no war with Argentina. There's a lot of pride happening, but even within that, I think that anyone would tell you what are the issues within their own community very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that Sandra glamorizes anything. You know, like there's a lot of really beautiful things in this community of Mango Street. And then there's a lot of really horrible things that happen.
Yeah. And she doesn't want to glamorize it because it's not glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her prerogative.
True. All right. Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up, and hopefully next time we get everything done in time to do Joy Luck Club. I think that Joy Luck Club is kind of the perfect book
to follow this.
From. Yeah, it also is kind of funny where I feel like we're talking about my Latin culture, even though I'm not Mexican American, but you know, like, but you also kind of get it. And now we're reading Joy Luck Club, which is Chinese American culture. And it's like, again, I kind of get it, but it's not mine. The way that I was tearing up reading the last episode when we were recording it and I was getting really emotional.
That's going to be me.
I think this might be finally the episode that makes you get teary.
Great.
Let me know when you start reading it.
I will. I might need to record right before therapy so I can go into therapy.
I think so.
Right after.
Yeah, we can coordinate that accordingly.
Okay. Great. All right, let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap it like a condom. Thank you for listening to this episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com. And we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Bye.
I always forget how long summer is in California, and all of my work clothes are geared towards fall, winter. I need more summer appropriate staples.
I'm going to be going to Portugal at the end of the summer, and I need Quince to help me with summer vacation clothes because they have literally everything.
They make elevated essentials using premium materials like European linen, organic cotton, and washable silk, which is my personal favorite, without the traditional retail markup.
They also have amazing shoes. I got their ballerina Mary Jane flats in brown, and I will be walking Portugal in that the entire time. They are so comfortable.
I also recently discovered that they have really fabulous 14 karat gold jewelry. Everything is subtle, delicate, and just classy. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they work with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen. So you're paying for exceptional quality, not brand markup.
Quince has everything you need, from apparel to home to bedding to bath and all of the kitchen essentials and furniture. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier.
Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365 days returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/booktalk.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Your team just added its 67th AI tool, and also your 67th security blind spot. The good news? The Vanta agent works like a GRC engineer in the background, finding every app your team uses, scoring the risk, and drafting fixes for you. Vanta is the platform used by over 16,000 fast-moving companies like Ramp, Cursor, and Harvey, who are shaping the future with AI and staying ahead of AI risk. Get started at Vanta.com.
Uncovered windows can make your home feel up to 20 degrees hotter. Stay cool and save up to 50% off custom window treatments during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com. From outdoor shades to room darkening blinds, finding the perfect fit is easy. Get free samples, expert design help, and professional measure and install services, or DIY with confidence and support every step of the way. Right now is your last chance to shop up to 50% off site-wide, plus huge savings during the 4th of July sale at Blinds.com.